Most of you know me, but I'm Judy Rosales with the Coast Ridge Community Forest. And just a real brief segue into this meeting. Our organization got its nonprofit 501c3 this year. We will be transitioning to the Coast Ridge Forest Council after the first of the year. This will probably be our last gathering as the Coast Ridge Community Forest. But we're excited about all the things that we've been able to do under that name. One of them is the Fort Ross, $423,000 from the county's vegetation management and G&E settlement funds to do roadside clearance on 9.3 miles of Fort Ross Road. I want to thank Daniel and Christopher, who have been, and will, I can't see, it's very hard to the top, who have been and will be working with Matt Green, our forester, to lay that out. We'll be working on the bid packets, getting all that ready in December to get started on that in the fall. Another outcome of that grant was a chipper, and we are starting a no-cost chipper program for the 3 ranches along Fort Ross Road, including Blue Jay Road, and that includes the Navarro Ranch, Walala Ranch, and Seaview Ranch. We're raising money. We have some money right now to get started. We have a goal of raising $10,000 so that we can allow this chipper to be used in all of these communities to continue the fantastic work that everyone's been doing. We have the local crews, Stephanie from our Fort Ross Volunteer Fire Department is one of the founders of that program. We have people on Blue Jay Road who are doing work on the Navarro Ranch. By the way, they've been doing work. Walala Ranch, we've been meeting every week. We met every weekend last spring. And we're hoping that this chipper is going to help promote that program and help keep our communities fire safe. So briefly, we all came together in July, most of us from Cazadero, Fort Ross, and Timber Cove fire districts, to talk about community-wide evacuation planning. And out of that meeting came individual community presentations that Marshall gave in the Cazadero, Fort Ross, Timber Cove, and also the North Sonoma Coast Fire District, so that we have consistent messaging throughout our region of what we're doing. Everybody's getting the same information. This meeting today is to have Marshall talk to us about what's the best way forward on the next CAL FIRE grant that opens for solicitation after the first of the year. We've all been talking about it. Do we submit our individual projects? Do we submit one big project? Do we start with ridge tops? Do we start with roads, our private roads? And only if we come together and have a unified voice on how we expect to move forward, I think that's the only way we're going to get noticed. The last round of CAL FIRE funding, only one project in Sonoma County was selected. And we're competing against the entire state.
That wasn't my fault. I'm not CAL FIRE.
Was it on your show?
But we're competing against the entire state of California. So what do we need to do here? What's our best path forward to bring some of that fire mitigation money to the North Coast, to the Sonoma North Coast? And that's what Marshall is here to talk about today. So, Marshall, it's all yours.
Cool, thank you. I think everyone knows me. I'll take my mask off while I'm up here, and we're filming this too. So I think most of you guys know I represent this area for CAL FIRE. I'm just one of 4 field battalion chiefs in Sonoma County. I report to Ben Nichols, who's from Cazadero, his family. And then Sonoma County is part of the Sonoma Lake Nappy Unit, one of 21 units in the state, and that's how all this stuff works. So, my objectives today, I think we have about 2 hours, till about 1 o'clock or so, but I can definitely stay a little later to kind of start some of the initial discussions and collaborations to build good projects that get selected either by CAL FIRE. I think there's going to be some more PG&E settlement funds being released, maybe as early as January 2022. but how do things start happening? And I know things are happening like whatever we're calling Stephanie's crew, the
GLC, the local crew.
The local crew, I know Bay Road and Advocate, people are out doing stuff, and Cal Fire's doing what we can do on Little Fort Rush Road. So how do we just build synergy, be strategic, support each other, so we're not saying, no, don't fund that or fund this. I also realize we're never going to get 100% agreement on anything, probably, no matter what. That's just the way it is. But how can I make it very hard for Cal Fire to say no to a grant proposal, or someone to say no, or Supervisor Hopkins, or whoever we can go get PG&E, go get money from to fund projects. So I kind of want to just talk about, where we go as a whole big, whatever region, zone, battalion, coast area, and then how do we basically get projects as shovel ready as possible? Because those are the ones that are getting funded, that have the environmental review, have a lead agency. They're basically, hey, we just need money to make this happen. We got community support, so I'll talk about that towards the end. But I'd like to do start off with just introductions. Maybe we'll start with you, G. And what are your objectives for today? And you've kind of already stated your objectives, but what do we want to get out of today? What do you want to leave here with? Some action items. I want to turn my frustration into action. I know I get frustrated. How can we do things? Even if it's small little tidbits. Those are kind of some of my objectives too. So, do you want to add anything to the list, Bonnie?
Yes, those are pretty much my objectives when we pulled this meeting together. So, and I've already spoken up. So, Bonnie, do you want to?
Hi, I'm the chief from North Sonoma Coast Fire Protection District. And I'm here to learn and listen and maybe give advice because I really admire all the work that's been done by your group out here and community groups and getting the community involved to do things. And we have been 100% unsuccessful at that. And so I really want to learn and maybe get some advice and get some contacts. We have a strange situation in our district. We're very large, 172 square miles. 10 square miles of it, it's really well managed because it's Sea Ranch and they have a staff and they take care of the fuels and everything's great. The other 162 square miles, not so much. And anyway, so that's kind of what I'm looking for, because there's a lot of roads out there and things that could use treatment, but we don't have any staff. We need the community to rise up and do what you guys are doing. So I'm looking for advice and assistance on this.
So I'm Shanti Edwards with Sonoma Land Trust. I'm the Coast Stewardship Funds Manager for lands out here in the west, including Pole Mountain, Little Rock Mountain, and Sierra Nevada reserves. And I'm here, of course, to learn and listen, but also just really want to engage in a conversation about how we can mesh our vision for improving forest health and improving community safety, and really looking at projects that larger impact to kind of address the backlog of management needs.
Do you want to talk about the Sonoma Valley Collaborative too? Because I think Sonoma Land Trust is part of that.
Yeah, so just really briefly.
Just another part of the county that's doing something.
So, Sonoma Land Trust was kind of one of the lead groups in a partnership in the Sonoma Valley in the kind of Nuns Fire burn footprint, where a bunch of agencies like Sonoma Ag and Open Space, Regional Parks, and Blue Root Preserve, Sonoma Land Trust, and others looked at how they could look at their kind of a shared landscape of 18,000 acres where they could kind of band together and look at all these protected lands and create just a patchwork of fuels management projects, including using all the tools. So mechanical, manual labor, and prescribed burning, pile burning, all of the different strategies, and then just really thinking about how that band of fuels management protects the Glen Island area. And so just highly vulnerable residential area with a lot of wildland fuels that have a lot of buildup of vegetation, and how they could use their partnership to leverage resources. And so they first received $1 million CAL FIRE grant, and so the Land Trust was the fiscal sponsor or the pass-through organization for convening the group to obtain the funds. But the group is now the Sonoma Valley Wildlands Collaborative, and it has a life of its own. On our team, Joe Clogger is the manager of that collaborative, and under Sonoma Land Trust, but it's kind of a nexus with all the other organizations. And I believe they just got another $1 million from CAL FIRE, and then they've received funding from other foundations and other funding agencies. So it's kind of like got a lifetime there's a lot of work, and this is just the beginning. So just getting that foundation to build on.
Spelling is not my strong point, but it's supposed to be collaborative.
We got it.
Looks right.
I'm Brooke Edwards. I managed the General Headlands for the last 12 years, where we put in about 130 acres of shaded fuel break. We've done maintenance on that, and we've worked with Marshall as CAL FIRE being the lead to do about 50 acres of prescribed burn out there. We've also led a lot of workshops out there, so hopefully some of you have made it out to a couple of workshops just to see what our shaded fuel break looks like, the different methods that we use, what it looks like after prescribed burn, really just to give people an idea of methods and treatments that they can use on their property. And so now I recently transferred over to Sonoma County Regional Parks, and so I'm working on forest management and fuels reduction, working in Gualala, Stillwater, but I'm also here still as a liaison to the Wildlands Conservancy at the Jenner Headlands. They're still actively managing that forest. So I'm really here to just help in continuation of the collaboration that we're all working on. I've worked with Judy and Craig on trying to use that Sonoma Valley collaborative concept and bring that to the Sonoma Coast. So we did a little write-up and some maps of the Sonoma Coast Collaborative, where it's really just a lot of communities coming together, trying to agree on a strategic map of fuels reduction, areas where we can prescribe fire, something that we can agree on so that when we send in our applications to try to get funding, we can point to the Sonoma Coast Collaborative, even though it might be a loose-knit kind of collaborative of ranches and rural residents. It still shows the funding agencies that we are working together, that we are coordinating, and especially if we are using the same language in our applications. That's just going to bump up how our applications rank when we're going through the ranking system. So anytime we can show that collaboration, I think it's really important to do, and hopefully that's something that we can continue to work on. The other thing I wanted to mention was that besides the CAL FIRE funds that will be coming up early next year, there's also going to be another round of the PG&E funds, and that's from the PG&E settlement. And so the Open Space District is now in charge of gathering those applications and then figuring out what projects are going to be funded. So that's going to be another source that's going to come up very soon. So, thanks.
We got Austin, right?
And we got Austin Edwards here. He's doing the coloring.
He's doing the map.
So if you have any maps that need some color,
And we got Kathy or Damien.
Yeah, one last thing I just want to mention. We do have information on the Sonoma Coast Collaborative that we've been working on. I'm fairly certain it's on our website. Craig Hayes from Eunice Ranches has just really done a great job on the mapping, and so you can find more information on our website. Sorry, Damien, up to you now.
So my name is Damien Bonet. I'm a resident of Seaview Ranch, and I'm really just here to advocate for a comprehensive outlook on what kinds of things we can do, from ridgeline defense to vegetation management, shaded fuel breaks, and home hardening.
Damien, would you mind just saying a couple of words about the Cass Hills Fire Emergency website page too?
Sure. So some years ago, I started a Facebook group called Cass Hills Fire Emergency Notifications, where I post about fires and other events and fire-related materials for the public.
Also the apps that you've been involved in.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah.
Those are really great.
Uh-huh.
And this fire season, a group of individuals from the area put together an application called Watch Duty that posts active vegetation fires and vegetation fires only. We don't do structure fires, we don't do anything else. It's only vegetation fires that actually are confirmed and have a risk to the community. So we've been working hard on that, and we're working hard right now to improve functionality in that app and what that provides to the community.
As a person who's used it, great.
Yes.
Really enjoying it. It's, I like how quickly things get updated on it and stuff, so even if it's not in my area, I know what's going on in the areas around me.
I'm glad to hear that.
Well done.
Yeah, he's being humble right now, but that Catskill Fire page has been so vital to all of us, especially during the Walbridge and Myers fires last year, to keep in touch and anything else that's going on here in our community. So thank you, Damien.
Just to throw one more quick thing too, he's also been working on a completely separate map for the fire department, which allows us to find individual addresses much easier than before. So if you have an address that technically is 15 minutes from your house, it actually shows on the map now, so it's been fantastic.
And lightning stuff and.
Yeah.
Skipped over that.
Hi there, Kathy from downtown Casadero. We're part of the, we have a project we're doing Bay Road evacuation route, hopefully to get up to back hills into Navarro Ranch. And we recently got a grant and have a chipper, and we're pretty soon going to be having a skid steer, a working device for us. We're super excited. And we're working on Bay Road. We've got about we started in March. We've got about just under 400 man hours into it, and been told it's looking pretty good. Now the neighbors on some of the side streets, we're working on them today. They're making their brush piles and their shaded fuel breaks, and we're trying to educate people as we go along so they don't just strip everything down and make it a prairie and an invitation for Scottsburn. Some people are listening, some people have their own idea, but we are trying to get that word out to, we'd love to meet on their properties and show up stuff, or Marshall would happen to go there. So we're here just to try to learn more and see if other grants come along, or just to learn how to be part of this big grant, really, ideally, as downtown Casadero, because we have a lot of roads, subdivisions, Magic Mountain, Sunrise Mountain, all those tributaries that are just bad, really bad. We need to work our way. Our grant's basically for Bay Road and the neighboring, but we're hoping we can, scoot it out as we go along.
So just so everyone knows, your fiscal sponsor, like who put the grant in? You had to have a sponsoring fiscal agent?
Yeah, so the Casadero Community Club, Paul Berry kind of spearheaded that. I was just kind of the person in the background giving them numbers and photos, and takes a village, but yeah, so.
Yeah, because that's going to be something I have to work on. Is like, who's
Right.
I can't submit the grant to CAL FIRE, we got to have someone to submit the grant
Got
to, right? So they have an organization there. And then you did have 100% agreement in the beginning, right? You had people that were saying it's a real stupid idea, and
Yep.
some of them have been converted over, or
Some are, yeah.
some
It's one we're working on today. It's gonna. I think it's really good where we're at today, because there's people that are holding out right there and now seeing what they've done. I think it's fabulous, and so I think it's gonna work that way just slowly. Some people are just ignoring us completely, but they're not as mad at us when we block Bay Road. I mean, they're used to us being a pain in the butt every other Saturday. And some people are thanking us, and some people are bringing us, donations and food, and so they're warming up to us.
Cool. And just another demonstration site for a roadside shake and fuel break. There's the stuff on that I call Magic Mountain at the dinner headland. There's the pile burning on Fort Ross Road, just the stuff the crew's doing. Because we're gonna have to define treatments at some point too, and people got to look, see if they want that treatment on their property to agree to it. So these
Right.
are all good demonstrations of how things work. So, cool. Thanks, Kevin.
It looks great.
Yeah.
It really
Yes,
looks
it
great.
does.
I don't know if we want to go to the front or
Ross?
Scott or.
Yeah.
I'm Rosalind White, and I'm from Odeon Retreat Center, and also we're associated with the Rotten Wing Retreat Center, both food centers up in this area. We are just getting started with our grant forays. One thing that's happened, which is great, the Save the Redwoods League, who owns a new park, the Harold Richardson Redwood Reserve, which is right across the street to us and just next to us at Odeon, to our lands. They reached out to us because it is to their advantage to have more partners in their grant codes. And they have a long history of success with getting grants. So we're working with them in collaboration.
as much as we can. Our first step is to get our forest management plan done. So if anyone knows any funding organizations for that, that would be great, because we need to get that done. We're kind of, our two properties, they're both on ridge tops, two different ridges. Rattling is on the second ridge end from the coast, and Odeon's on the first. Oh, the other way around, sorry about that. We've got Odeon too. So, we worked with Eric Lynn, and he's mentioned that, it'd be really helpful to get those ridge tops in good shapes, because the fire go down that way. And we have quite a bit of forest on our property that needs management, needs to get clean. So anyway, we're very happy to have this more broader collaboration in the community, and would like to work with everybody as much as we can to make our area more fire safe.
I don't know, Eric, if you want to mention CFIP right now, you want to save that?
I'll write that down. So
Okay,
we'll talk
good.
about it. But yeah, CFIP is a grant that individual landowners can apply for. California Forest.
To get your forest management
The
plan.
money just got released to get there. Now I am talking about it. So it's through CAL FIRE. They just released another batch of money to do that, to people to apply for. And if you go to that website, I think they said every 2 months they're going to release money. So seems to be a good continuous stream now of money going into CFIP, where before it kind of had dried up. And you guys probably, I don't even know the truth of the $31 billion extra the state's going to have at some point, but that might go into these grants, I'm hoping too. So just pay attention to CFIP. It's off the CAL FIRE website. There's also the North Bay Forest Improvement Project, which got a CAL FIRE grant, and they're also helping out private landowners. And that's something we'll have to talk about at some point is, we're looking at collective, collaborative, multi-property owner involvement grants. So the individual property owner is always going to have some responsibility too for defensible space structural hardening, I think. Though there might be opportunities for funding there as well. So CFIP is for the private landowner to develop forest management plan and to get grants to benefit the private landowner versus a collaborative, multiple benefit landowner. And Megan Reeves is the CAL FIRE person out of Santa Rosa for our area. I'm sure she's going to get swamped. It was Joe Butler before that probably Joe Butler. Cool.
I defer.
Oh,
We got there. My name is Rudy.
okay. Daniel? Back, I didn't see, okay. Yeah, let's go back, I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. So I'm Dave and this is Kirsten. We're resident staff here at PTI Black Mountain Center. So we're glad you could all come today. It's wonderful to see so many people, especially Marshall and Judy. Welcome you guys back. This property is about 485 acres. I'm sure most of you know it was the old Black Mountain Conservation Camp built by the state in the mid-60s. We're actively working here on a daily basis on fuel reduction and trying to make the space safer for the center's future and the community's future. And we're really excited to see what's happening outside our borders and how we can interact with and interface with that.
And we are very much interested in doing a collaborative grant. We tried, failed on a small one, seeing that going together will work better. We can act, we're a non-profit, and so we can act as some kind of sponsoring body if that helps. We're not sure. I'm really interested in what you said about like the management techniques, what we're going to do and how each individual landowner agrees. When we started doing our things, we thought chipping was the answer. And now we're saying it's not the answer, and prescribed burn is a possibility of very small units only in this terrain. It's very complicated as well. So pile burning seems to be the way that we're going at the moment. And so we're just like, because I've looked and looked and I try and find that across California, people with big ranch lands and big spaces, no problem, they're sorted, but so many fields around here, we're not in that kind of land. So what we're going to have to do is quite different, I think. And I'm curious, Marshall, what the latest thinking is through seeing the recent fires. What works? And the manual labor is complicated. We've got a solution for our little piece of land here, but
That's something, yeah, definitely be part of the conversation either today or, yeah, when we need to go.
Thank you.
You can call it.
My name is Eric Koenig chauffeur. I live in the Freeson Occidental area. I came today. I'm the 5th District Planning Commissioner and here hopefully to learn. I'd add that currently the local coastal plan, which affects, of course, only the coastal zone properties, is in a process of update. In addition to just the general coastal zone policies and state law regarding conservation of natural resources, there's a public safety element which is part of the local coastal plan. And you know, there's the slight complication that obviously the landscape doesn't care about governmental legal boundaries and so forth. So what I'm hoping to do is have a better understanding of, you know, what communities are doing, and then especially what overlap or integration can there be between coastal zone policies and inland policies, because obviously they need to be, I mean, they're one issue, so that's why I came.
Does everyone know about the coastal zone? Oh, yeah, you guys do.
It'll take a while.
Go ahead, Marshall.
Go to the coastal zone group. Scott?
Scott.
Scott?
Okay, Scott Farmer, Sonoma Coast Municipal Advisory Council Chair for a little while longer. I'm here to listen and learn, and with a view to the longer term. And again, the local coastal plan and how it integrates is a big interest of mine as well.
Eric Lynn, Chief of the Timber Cove Fire Protection District. I'm here, I really am interested in getting in on a much larger grant out in West County or however it works out. And also, we did get a grant for a chipper and some labor to operate it. We're struggling with the permit process. So I really would like to hear other people's input on what's happening with permits or.
And that's the permitting with the coastal zone, right?
We actually staged one of our work areas as the marketing area because we knew everybody's going to drive by there and they're going to look at it and they're going to go, it looks incredible because as you guys know, people hear this hyperbole about a clear cut or they think that this kind of stuff is like, oh, it's going to ruin nature. You know, in my opinion, it's a healthy forest is what we're looking for. A healthy forest is a fire resilient forest. So I don't know, I see it being the same thing, and I just think that, yeah, the community awareness is a huge part of it. But anyway, what can we do, where can we do it, and then we'll figure out how to do it.
Really quick on that note, we had a work day late last spring, and I selected an area that we were going to do. Everybody showed up, it was great. I got there early because I like to check it out beforehand, and so I know where to put everybody to be the most effective. And as I was there, one of the landowners that his property comes down to that road right there, came storming down the driveway, just all angry and everything, and he's like, I don't want you here, I'll call the lawyers, I will call the cops, whatever. And I was like, whoa, what's going on, you know? And he said, I hear what you guys are going to do, and I don't want you doing it over here. And I went, let's talk about this. And, I said, and one of the things that I think that you can do is just you have to be respectful of all the people whose property you're on. Absolutely 100%. Otherwise, there's no buy-in. And make them part of the process, I went through and I was like, hey, here's why we're doing this. Because if a fire comes through here, I need you to get out of here safely. I need to get through if I need to come get you, or respond to you somehow. We are not clear cutting, I 100% guarantee it. And let's walk through and you point out stuff that you absolutely don't want us to touch. And I said, fine, that's great. And we flagged all those, had everybody on the same board, and then after after the day was done, I grabbed him and I said, let's walk through. Let's go back and see how things look now. And he was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. You know, I can see the creek now. I can see these plants that I couldn't really see before because there's all this little crappy stuff growing there that will never grow to be healthy.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's, you got it, no matter how your plan goes, it has to respect the people that are part of that land.
And understand how paralyzing that overwhelmingness can be. I think that's probably what was, coming from partly, right?
Huge,
It's just not doable. That's great.
Good morning, my name is Lucy Eliska, and I'm also from News Ranches. Craig Definer work really well and really has been working so hard for the past 5 years to accomplish it. And I work on our communications mostly, so we've created a Google group for about 100 of our residents, about half full-time, half part-time. And so we've been trying to use that as well to promote good practices, our home hardening, vegetation. We, inform each other about burns, and definitely it's become a bit of a forum for, peer pressure and building excitement around this work. And every time, there's work on fuel shaded prairie, people, post comments about how beautiful it looks, and then when people get their own work done, they also marvel at how incredible the forest looks. So that's been effective. But I'm so excited to meet all of our neighbors in person. I just really want to thank Judy for all of the community organizing to create this collaborative, and for hosting us, and firefighters for putting their lives on the line to keep us safe. And I'm just here to learn, what we need to do to collaborate and support those efforts as much as I can with communications, grant writing, whatever we need. It's near Jenner Headlands and Sirloin Trust.
Yeah, I got a map of you.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Christopher Foner, with the Coast Ridge Community Forest Fire Department, Rolla Ranch. With all that's been said in the intros, I kind of be repetitive. So, I'm really looking forward to the collaborative. It's obviously, whether it's how we have to do it with these bigger grants, but really I think it's bringing this entire Coast Range and beyond together. I think that's really important to look at all issues. Because this is our coast, this is our home, this is our backyard. We love it here. And it's important that we act together, because that's, we've done a lot of things as an organization and even in smaller circles very effectively. But imagine what we can do as a bigger group. So, Marshall, show me the money.
Turn your application in.
Yeah, you know you can.
My turn?
Your turn, Wanda.
Okay, I'm Wanda Swenson. I'm also on the board of Coast Ridge Community Forest, now being transitioned to Coast Ridge Forest Council, because that is our official nonprofit name. So I've been helping a lot, just trying to get this nonprofit up and running. Huge learning curve of all that entails. So I'm also Rolla Ranch, and just to sort of the other side of the coin, we're a homeowners association, and we have a road committee that's existed for years, and right now there's sort of a new bunch of us on the committee. And roads have become now not just road maintenance, but it's about vegetation management and fuel reduction, because that's the picture of, the roads, that's the picture of the area we live in. And also, for money concerns and, just climate change in general, for everyone to get more on board with, being active in the fuel reduction. So one thing I just maybe to add that hasn't been here, because I'm very excited and maybe a little skeptical, but of us all being able to get a CAL FIRE grant. You can see what Judy's handed out with what she has done with all this mapping and planning and proposals. And that's really what everyone needs to do to get us all on board, more together to present this collaborative
face, to CAL FIRE. The other thing, to be shovel-ready, not only do you need lead agencies, that's been mentioned, but you do need participation agreements. I mean, that's, get everybody signed on. I mean, that really is something that is looked at a lot. So that's something you can start, I mean, as soon as you know what roads you want to focus on, when you've done your mapping, and to get on it with getting participation agreements. And what we have is through our webpage, there's a way that people can just go and sign up for a participation agreement. And it's quite simple. I mean, that's just key to getting these grants. So I really hope this is successful. And I just want to say that I'm also the MAC representative of Fort Ross community in the coastal MAC, the coast MAC. Even though we're not in the coastal zone at all, but my heart goes out to folks in the coastal zone, everyone in the Timber Cove, everybody in Sea Ranch.
You may not be in District 5 anymore either. So.
And Eric can talk about that later. Redistricting, that's another thing. There's so many things going on. But I really hope through the revision of, the update of the coastal plan, there's some way to change the permitting and to change how you can do this kind of work. So we are a contiguous zone. It's just crazy to think of this area and to have this cutoff. It's kind of arbitrary, cutoff. So
these maps you see here, they're all, I think, they're laid on the table. The Cedars and Wickersham, I think, are over here just because I don't know if they have representation. There's also a Bernville map, I don't know if we have a Bernville map. So going back even before the Myers and Walbridge fire, the idea of a pre-attack map, or people come to me and say, Marshall, what is your plan, right? Because we need to get like a collaborative plan. So if you're asking me what the plan is, that's kind of why I put the maps together. But I'm also going to talk about the county's community wildfire protection plan as a scoring system. There's other ranking systems. There's the PG&E grant ranking system. There's the CAL FIRE grant ranking system. So if you look at those maps, the red lines are fire roads, addresses that I know about, and they're not all inclusive because a lot of it's just regular Sonoma County data that I haven't tweaked, but data that Damien's improved upon. And then the black dots with the X's, those are lines that we would put in during a fire. So those are usually pre-identified ridges that we would, do a lot of environmental damage to clear off to put in a fire break. Not a shaded field break, but a fire break on a bare mineral soil. So those are ones that we used to already put in previous fires or ridges we've looked at. So that's just, not saying we're gonna do it, but that's how a firefighter looks at the landscape, right? We can't stop the edge of the fire, we pull back and we do a lot of damage. So that's what those maps are if you wanna take a look at them. So whether we do roadside treatments, strategic ridge top fuel breaks, that's where we might all be going, and these maps will hopefully maybe start that discussion. So that's all I want to say for you guys. So you might not like how I phrased that question, but where do we want to do projects? And we can look at this two ways. We can look at it like do the work along CB Road or along the driveway, or we can look at it, hey, all private roads, all county roads, ridge top fuel breaks, fire roads. Is that fair to say? I mean, can we just start brainstorming more and then we can talk specific geographic areas later, perhaps?
Mm-hmm.
So, Scott?
It seems to me to make sense that we take the historic fire patterns and the way you view the terrain to establish priorities of areas to make us most aptly defended.
Yeah.
And follow the science, so to speak.
So we want to call that use science. Works. So I'll tell you the pros and cons about all this. Is you may not get we're going to save 300 homes and protect thousands of lives, and so another grant maybe claims that, and so that's where it gets tricky. So just, I totally get what you're saying. Just that's the downside of that. Is we sometimes got to say, oh, we're in the very high fire hazard, or we're in PG&E Tier 3, or the County of Sonoma CFPP ranks at a 52 score. Just realize that's the problem with just totally going with, which I agree with, going with science. there's also different versions of science, just like there's different opinions too. And so that's what we gotta figure out as well. I think Eric had a comment.
Yeah, following up on Scott's thought there, to me, a kind of logical progression would be to forget about roads, houses, all that stuff, and look at the footprint of likely fire. And then as a sub to that knowledge, do an overlay that has houses, communities, public roads, private roads, all that. And then figure out on the different categories of potential funding, how do you fashion an application that emerges from science with the overlays that's responsive to the criteria of each application category. That would be my thought on it. Because even just like, the public roads versus private roads, obviously we all know it's much more complicated to do a public road because if you're going to have those setbacks, it's way beyond the county road right away. So you're going to have to deal with a whole bunch of private property owners to sign up for that approach. So that's a different degree of complexity that presents a different task in a certain way, but it's all driven by how it fits into this, nature's definition of what the risk area is.
Okay. And just and I think instead of asking a fire history now, fire history really is the last 100 years, and there's not a lot of fire history. So some areas out here, in theory, never burned, and we know that's not true. So could we turn that into, is it a north wind? What's our north wind fire history? What's our offshore fire history? Or where's fire want to burn with topography? And so that's when you kind of get into like synthetic history, not actual fire history. And I'm only saying that because we don't have a lot of fire history in the science, in the models. And so in the county's UO protection plan, they developed a new indice for the potential that a certain area could burn in this county. So that might be where we go to a synthetic, a non-history based fire history. But I totally get what you're saying.
So as far as where a probable fire is going to happen, I don't think that we can say where a probable fire is going to happen.
Well, let's check this out. It's usually where people are at.
Right. That's true, because a lot of them are escape burns or they're, power lines, et cetera, et cetera.
And I'm just challenging you because over 95% of our fires were people caused. Obviously, we had lightning last year.
Right.
So some of our most destructive fires were lightning caused. So it's this whole thing about you look at ignitions or you look at where the biggest potential is.
Got it.
But ignitions are by homes, by roads. Unless you got the hunter that walks in the middle of nowhere and lights a fire or something.
So if that's the case, then we'd want to use a map that shows, probably the two big things would be where people are living. So you want a map with, blocks or something with everybody's homes on them. And then also that topography, because depending on a time of day, winds, etc., fires are going to be driven in a certain direction. Which of course, depending on the fuels, will be.
So we'll call that's part of this fire history, the air product fire modeling. I said synthetic, it's where could a bad fire burn.
Right. And then the other part is you've got the people who will want to get out. So the ingress and egresses need to be safe enough for them to do so. And for us to come, for fire to come in and out as well. And possibly, places for people to pull over, et cetera, et cetera. Those important things.
Cool. Okay, do them all.
I just want a comment. I don't really care where the fire starts. I assume a fire can start anywhere, at any place, at any time.
That's true.
All I care about is where can the area be segmented so that there is a next possible place for defense. What we saw during the Wall Bridge, what we saw during the Myers, as Marshall mentioned before, what are the firefighters going to do? They're going to go out and they're going to try to create a place to make a defense, and whether that's a pre-existing road, whether that's a dozer track that they're going to put in, they're going to start looking out to the next possible place that they can push back create that defense, and then rinse, repeat if needed. So that's the only thing I really think about is where's the next segment and how can we get ahead of that so that when that happens, it's something that we want to have happen in a way that we want it to have happen. So we can do less damage and potentially be more effective than if we have to just quickly get the dozer out there, run as fast as you can, and hope we get it right.
So I don't remember exactly what this stands for, but this is the pods, and there's going to be a pod presentation coming up in Sonoma County. It's actually a national term, but it's basically pre-identifying ridges and locations you're going to go to, and having them prepared ahead of time so you're not racing out there with a bulldozer and doing a lot of damage. And so that's the pod. That's the strategic fire break. So that's using roads as barriers, roads as an edge of a future edge of the fire. So I forget what it stands for, but I can look it up.
And then also, a lot of discussion has been of, do we prioritize our private roads, or do we prioritize the ridge lines? And, there's two schools of thought on that. And one, that I heard recently is, well, it depends on the winds. And, and those ridge lines are going to be important. But now we're talking about, well, these fires are going to be ignition. Places are going to be where there's population. So, my personal feeling is, get people in and out, and everything, all the discussions that we've had. And I've only had a few recently on the ridge lines with people like Matt and others who really prioritize that. So I think when we met last year, both Ben Nichols and Matt Green said, you need to focus on your ridge lines. So I'm not quite sure, how do we come together on that?
If you have a big enough project, you can do them both.
Well, actually, I would like to hear your opinion, Marshall, on that, if there's anything kind of definitive from what you've been seeing. Roads versus ridges, or go ahead.
Yeah, this is my frustration. That's why I put it up there. Do we want to determine our grants based on where we're going to get, or determine our project based upon grant funding? Because that's kind of what you're saying, Tiki, right? I think we're going to go more and more to what the county move off our protection plan says it should happen.
So from your perspective, I mean, the work we're doing along the roads, we feel is pretty important for getting people out, for getting services in. Do you feel, do you think it's really worth it?
Yeah, so the overarching stuff, and this was the last debate at the county's to go off our protection plan, is what are our priorities? The fire service forever has said life, property, then the environment. And that's probably where it's going to go to. So life, where's life? Your houses, roads. As Stephanie said, that's how we get in, that's how we get out. So to me, it's always about roads. Now, some of the roads just happen to be ridge top, like Seaview, King Ridge in some parts, Fort Ross in some parts. So I'm all about that. So I look at like what Damon's talking about. If a fire did happen, where, I hate to say it this way, but there's 20 homes in this watershed, this canyon, this ecosystem. If we pull back to these roads and defend those structures and let the rest of the acres burn, is that where we're going in our future? Is that okay? And everyone's got defensible space, so the home should be okay. Are we becoming fire adapted?
Well, I think also, Marshall, what do you think about looking at some of these smaller grants like the county? What do they have, 300 million right now? I can't remember what was announced.
From the
PG&E settlement, this next round of funding. Looking at our roads on the 3 ranches, 2 years ago, we were looking at about $600,000, and you add maybe 20%, maybe more to that now. So maybe we look at doing our private roads with some of these smaller grants like the county, and then looking at the ridge lines for CAL FIRE. I don't know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so that's definitely a possibility because you look at what's going to cost the most. It's probably going to be where you have to go to some place you can't get to, hike into it, tractor into it, not along the road. So that definitely is an approach. The County of Sonoma, the original PG&E grants, I think were awarded around June of 2021, somewhere around there, June, July, the grants you guys got. And then in July, the Board of Supervisors, I think, allocated $7 million or $3 million to conditionally approved projects. And I know those conditionally approved projects, I'm aware of, are all Ridgetop. And that's because my boss, Ben Nichols, is on that.
He's on that committee.
He's on that committee. So that's why I'm saying, it looks like Ridgetop are the thing right now, if you want to go there. So just keep that in mind. Where our road happens to be Ridgetop, that meets whatever that saying is, 2 birds, 1 stone. Yeah. So that might be good. But then remember, we got state highway, we got county roads, we got private roads. Eric talked about ownership, we've dealt with this. I mean, the environmental review I haven't gone over yet either. I'm a fan of roads. Where roads are also Ridgetop's even better.
So, okay, just one last thought on that, one last thought on that. So maybe what we do is we look for funding to support these local volunteer groups to do some of the work that they're doing on Bay Road and on the ranch roads, give more money to them, because that seems to be where the work is happening right now.
Yeah, well, then let me just say that, I'm taking this all in today, and I do maps. I'm thinking, I want to lay out like everything everyone wants to do that has some value, right? And I don't mean like it has no value versus value, but it's all strategic and like, okay, if this grant's for Ridgetop, if this grant's for only 15,000, let's start, hey, this is where we apply for it.
Yeah.
And everything, we leverage it all together, that this is like Sonoma Coast Phase 1 wildfire mitigation or something like that, and it all builds on one another. Whether it's a CAL FIRE Forest Health grant, whether it's a CAL FIRE Fire Bridge grant, whether it's PG&E settlement, whether it's whatever funding becomes available, it fits into this master plan that we've collectively developed. It's not just Marshall's opinion.
I like that.
That sounds great. So that would be like, a map with a lot of layers. I mean, so this map could be used, you take off that layer and then it's just your Ridgetop.
Well, and I think we really feed it all into the county CFPP so everyone can see it.
Yeah.
All be on the same page.
But I just have one question, just the logic of it. I mean, if it is about, safety of, people, property, whatever resources, how environment, then what's the Ridgetop? I mean, how did that get up there so high in CAL FIRE?
Because we have to stop
Yeah.
It's just, why I got up there was, I worked on a project in Rio Neato. I called it the bathtub ring. It was behind all the houses, as you guys know, Rio Neato, all the houses are in Monument Canyon.
Yeah.
And it was basically to clear along the whole canyon above the houses. It was a bathtub, because the fire starts at the house.
Yeah.
We can stop it before it gets up onto the ridge. If fire's coming down the ridge, we can slow it down for disaster. Same thing I proposed to do at Fitch Mountain. They applied for PG&E funding, they didn't get it, and then they were told to go up on the ridges. So that's where my boss is saying, go to ridges. Open up ridges so we can stop the fire from even getting into Rio Neato. And really the mentality is more of the firefighter mentality. That's why I showed you the map of the dozer line. That's where we go. Right? If we can't stop the fire at a road, we put in an artificial road on top of a ridge that's really destructive.
Yeah.
That's how we in the mining thing. So we either put those Ridgetop fuel breaks in ahead of time, so they're managed, not destructive.
And isn't part of that too, that for air attack, those ridgeline places are where you can lay down the retardant to stop the fire. If you don't have an opening, it's not effective to just put retardant on the top of the trees.
Yeah.
You need to get it down to the ground. You want to get that fire slowed. You want to bring it back down out of the canopy if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And get it back on the floor, so now you can do something about it. Because when these guys are out there and you've got fire in the canopy, it's just late.
It's too late. And those are the embers that go down, man.
Yeah.
So, and I'm forced to agree too, so I look at this more like ecological too. It's like, we're basically, by going in and doing a shaded fuel break, clearing out the understory, we're trying to do what nature would have normally done through low intensity wildfires. So we excluded, put fires out, now we're trying to be a surrogate for that. And so, Ridgetop fuel breaks, also maybe we'll evolve into we can start burning whole canyons off in a prescribed burn manner. We can light up our top grids up back down versus let them run off the canyon. So it's just, what's old is new, what's new is old, right? We used to have people on tops of mountains watching for fires, now we have cameras. We used to have shaded fuel racks back in the day that this camp used to manage. We abandoned them. Now we're trying to put them back in. So it's this big cycle we're going through.
And I do think, oh, go ahead, Scott.
How do we bring state parks into this?
Okay. I think State Parks is a very willing partner.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about mainly the like Salt Point, right? Fort Ross, Austin Creek. I'm sorry, right? I think we got Sonoma Landress, we got regional parks in. I mean, anybody who owns land, I think is in on this or manages land.
Do they have their own funds that they would contribute, or they become a?
So they, so I'm pretty sure state parks can't get CAL FIRE funding, but they've got a huge infusion of money to do fire abatement, fire work. If you've been over, that's why Armstrong and Austin Creek have been closed for a while. That's what funded the California Conservation Corps working on Fort Ross, CB Road, that's building those piles. They had funding for that. So they, I think as part of a project, we have projects in the parks. How they fund it, whether they fund it internally or they find whatever funding, a budget change proposal from the state or something, but it's identified that's a collaborative community benefit project on state parks property that's going to tie into our project. I don't know, I'm not talking as CAL FIRE, I'm talking as me in your community. We could apply for a grant that goes up to the state park, knowing that the state park's got to do the rest to continue it to make it linear.
To be part of a project with two funding sources.
Correct.
But coordinated.
Yeah. I'm working on a project, Devil's Backbone project between Old Casadero Road and Armstrong Woods Road. That Brendan O'Neill of State Parks. There's going to be state parks lands in that project, and they're good with it. I mean, it's the very early stages. That's going to be a competitive, somebody competing against you in a grant probably. See, I play all sides. I'm like a free agent.
I think just along these lines, something that should be put up there as part of the big picture is just the plan has to include agreements with anybody political, parks, groups, that all the politics have to be part of the larger plan. Yeah.
But in college, I learned about the Quincy Library Group. That was hippies versus loggers. Sorry, that's on tape. And they all basically agreed to do some logging. This is going back into the 90s for the benefit of the community.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I do, go ahead, somebody else had their hand up.
Well, yeah, I mean, tell me if this is better for later, but I actually have two questions. One of them is, do you have any sense of what the success rate for like the CAL FIRE or these grants in general? Because, you know, I always wonder, are these 80%?
Well, Judy gave out the stats. I don't know how many people in Sonoma County applied, but
Almost 200 according to Tom.
from Sonoma County?
Yeah.
Okay, and one got funded.
Right, I'm actually talking about completion though, actually getting the grant done and then it's been successfully completed and those funds were used.
It's pretty high.
Is it? Okay.
Because here's why. If 200 people applied from Sonoma County and only one got funded, a lot of them, I think CAL FIRE looks at it like, this is like half baked, not really thought out, don't have landowner permission, they just sort of side. So they pick ones that are really
guaranteed.
Yeah, like some about collaborative really have it tightly organized. And so to CAL FIRE, I think that's more of a no-brainer.
And another thing right now too is that what I heard is that a lot of these projects that are getting funded, they have professional grant writers. They have agencies who are writing these grants for them. We are grassroots out here. We're doing this on our own. And I think, you know, each time you write a grant, it doesn't get funded, you learn something new. And so that's a whole other thing. The fire grants are getting so competitive that we need every angle. And I think, you know, and I know that, you know, we've spoken with other people in other agencies, and I think that, you know, we certainly do want a partnership, but I also know that we have so much talent in these communities who know more about, you know, what's on the ground than bringing anyone in. I mean, it does help to know the language and know what they're looking for, but I don't think anyone could write the scope of work better than anyone in any one of our communities. So, but we are looking at partnering with other agencies. I do think, you know, showing the collaboration with state parks with Brendan O'Neill, maybe we're not applying for the same funding, but to show that we are working with them in our planning. There are a lot of things that we can be doing, like this planning meeting today, and just hearing what we're all doing.
Remember, the grants normally get announced and we all scurry to put grants in. This is like trying to get ahead of the curve and get them really well thought out.
Well, I guess the second part then is, can we talk a little bit about shovel ready? Because that to me is a little bit confusing, because if you're shovel ready, you've got your CEQA, and you've got your, I mean, so isn't that kind of a big, huge deal to fund that kind of stuff in advance when you're trying to?
I can answer shovel ready. I was going to go there today anyway towards the end, but
okay.
Let's see what Damien has to say.
So on the scorecard for grants, we talked about this pecking order. We have life, property, and environment. I think as we go through these things, whatever the project is, we have to assign something from one of those three buckets to this. And that's just part of how you present to them, and make sure it's very clear you understand, and maybe kind of advertise it a little bit. These are things that we're doing to protect life. These are things we're doing to protect property. And these are things we're doing to protect the environment. And in some cases, it's going to be a combination. So kind of give that, you know, doing the shaded fuel break is about this, and then secondarily it's about this, and make that very clear.
Yeah, I think Daniel's one of the applications for CAL FIRE there. That's like the opening sentence, right? Yeah. This is a vegetation management fuel reduction project to benefit 30,000 people, protect 50,000 homes, protect the historic Fort Ross, critical infrastructure, the transmission power lines.
Right, and then for each item, kind of dig into.
Going into more detail.
I was just going to add that, you know, the discussion about all the different theoretical priorities and strategies and so forth, for grant writing purposes, I think you look at the grant funder and their approach coincidentally becomes yours.
So let me go into shovel ready really quick. So if we develop this huge area, which I'm in support of, it's never going to be like one project, right? It'd be like a $3 trillion project. I'm picking on the president. It'd be $2 trillion. You know, it'd be too huge. So it's always going to have to be piecemeal or in stages plus then maintenance. So to do shovel ready would be, okay, we got a grant announced in January 2022. It's whatever, $2 million available. What can we do for $2 million? So to make it shovel ready, you need to basically define the specific geographic area where it's going to happen. Is it 30 feet off of Bohan Dillon Road? I'm just going to pick Bohan Dillon. And we're going to go from Fort Ross Road to, at what point do we stop on Bohan Dillon? Right? That's different than the same we're going to do along Bohan Dillon. So where is that? Is it 30, 100 feet? You're going to get outside of the county road right away. So you're going to have County of Sonoma as a definite partner until the road turns totally private, if you choose to go onto private, or you get outside the road right away. And so, then you got the geographic area. Then what are you specifically going to do? Are you going to clear cut everything 6 inches or more, limit up trees 10 feet? What exactly are you going to do? You're going to take out trees that could fall on the road? Define exactly what you're going to do. So exact geographic area, exactly what you're going to do. Don't just say we're going to do a shaded fuel break. What is that landowner expecting to occur in their property? Side note, if 3 landowners don't want in, I say you still include them in the project area, just know it may never get done there because they always decide to opt in my opinion, at a later date. So, specific geographic area, specific treatment. Then you go try to get the environmental review done. So that means you need to have some agency, usually a government entity, do an environmental review. And for a roadside clearance, it might be as simple as what's called the notice of exemption. We are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act because of category 4, 7, and 11. Because of the minor altercation to lands, for the protection, it's along human-made infrastructure, right? And that's how you do it. You still may need to stay out of creeks, or you ride it to no soil disturbance, but that's the lowest level environmental reviews and notice of exemption. From there, it ramps up to all the way up to a full-blown CEQA, not an environmental impact report, but a vegetation treatment program, so CAL VTP. Matt here can give you prices for that, but for about a 3-mile ridgetop fuel break I'm working on in brush, $25,000. Okay? But that's going to give the ability over 10 years to use mechanical, herbicide, gives you all the options. Right. So if you guys are gonna go the full Cal VTP route, which is definitely an option, and the County of Sonoma is looking to fund Cal VTP maybe in the Occidental area for that, out of PG&E settlement funds, maybe it's something you talk to your supervisor about. You know, that's going to be big. That's going to be a big geographic area, more than probably the grant's going to cover. But it gives you 10 years of environmental review.
Well, with the tremendous upfront cost with no guarantee of return on that.
Yeah, and maybe you can put a grant in PG&E funding, and we want $200,000 to do a Cal VTP to cover this entire area to allow us to do X, Y, Z.
Right.
And also, there is a grant right now through the California Fire Safe Council, and it's only for counties. And I talked to the senior grant manager last week. Our county would have to put that grant in for us. We were going to talk about that later, but there's a maximum of $385,000. And I thought about putting it in for a Cal VTP. I've had some conversations with Shanti Edwards and information from her that that I'm sharing with Matt Green to see how we want to go about doing that. But if we could get $350,000 from the California Fire Safe Council to just do the VTP, make us shovel ready for the projects that we already have ready, those of us who do have projects. But the County of Sonoma would have to put that grant in for us. And we have our 2 MAC representatives here today, and I'm hoping that, we can put together, this is what the grant manager said, just put a 1-pager together, send it to your supervisor, and see if they would be willing to submit this grant on your behalf. I think using our full Sonoma Coast here, that the section that we're talking about, the segment, would be a good project for that. What's your take on it?
Yeah, no, if you can get the County of Sonoma, because I looked into that grant too after you sent it out. Either the county's got to apply on your behalf, or the county's got to say, yeah, we delegate down to whatever group to apply for the County of Sonoma.
Can somebody define Cal VTP?
So the V is vegetation, the T is treatment, the P is program. It's it was sold, advertised, explained that it's the easiest way to get anything done. The environmental review is. So it basically is best management practices. So if you want to work along a creek, it's stay out of the creek. Don't put chips in the creek. If you're going to light like a backfire or you're going to use prescribed fire, don't light from the creek and let it head fire run out of the creek. Light the edge and let it back into the creek. You know when it might go out. So it's best management practices that was developed. Cal Fire commissioned this, a third-party consulting firm to develop it. And so you basically look at your project, go through this whole process and be like, yeah, we're in compliance with the Cal VTP. We've mitigated all our possible environmental damages. And you guys, Brooke or Shanti can correct me wrong, it's called a notice of determination under CEQA, that by doing these specific tactics, how we're going to do this work, we fall under what's been already cleared and approved under the California Vegetation Treatment Program. So the California Board of Forestry, the governing body of CAL FIRE, independent of the governor, well, the governor appoints the people, developed the Cal VTP. So they went out to, I think it's called Ascent. It's a firm out of Sacramento. Said, hey, we want a program where CAL FIRE, other government agencies can do vegetation management. They don't gotta create a bunch of own environmental review. We want a framework that if they fall under this framework, they're allowed to do the work. Does that make sense? Even in CAL FIRE, it's not really well understood. And I'm kind of pushing the envelope that if, let's just say Timberco Fire District filed a Cal VTP, CAL FIRE could send inmates, it could send firefighters out to do the work because it's met CAL FIRE's requirements for environmental review. So that's why the Cal VTP is like the gold standard right now for vegetation management environmental review.
I know I'm asking the denied questions, but when we look at this, the environmental review is like one of the biggest stumbling blocks.
Yeah.
Because we don't know how to do it, we don't have the money to do it. I mean, is it, and for those of you that have done this, is it possible to get a grant to pay for the environmental review for another grant? I mean, Is there
It's
a way to do
possible.
that?
It is possible, but to get shovel ready before grant funding, you almost need to upfront the money to do environmental review. So you guys, or somebody, Sea-Ranch, right, got the Moonraker clearance, PG&E settlement funds?
Yeah.
You know who, did Sea-Ranch Association apply for that, or?
Yeah.
And so they must have done the environmental review.
Classic council did.
Right, yeah. So somebody said, hey, we're working within 300 feet of this repeater site, critical infrastructure. They probably just did a notice of exemption to get the work done.
So,
But-
so,
So if you file a notice of exemption, like who says you're correct? I mean, like where do you start? No,
You want to file this goes down, so you file this exemption, there's a state clearinghouse, it's the county clerk, it's posted, if no one complains, boom.
You're set.
Bonnie, I can talk to you about that. We did it.
Yeah, you guys did it for your stuff.
Yep. Yep,
So-
you got it.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie.
with our CAL FIRE California Climate Initiative grants.
Okay.
We were able, all the environmental CEQA and everything else was included in that. So that was covered. So this shovel ready, is this like the future now? Everything's gonna move more towards that?
Yeah, I'm seeing shovel ready more for what I'm seeing with the PG&E funded grants. And just so you guys know, the Climate Change Initiative, CCI, really that's what's funding the forest health grants and the CAL FIRE fire prevention grants. So those are the big money, the big ticket grants. Comes out of CCI, Climate Change Initiative. But honestly, when you guys applied, there was a lot less competition.
Right.
So what you got away with, don't take this offensively, but what you got away with is now it's been ramped up.
Oh, we can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's ramped up. And so the more you have ready, the better off you're gonna be. And one thing I didn't finish about shovel ready is big thing is landowner permission. So geographic area, specific treatment, environmental review, making sure landowners are in on it. Because that's a big problem here about using science. I have the best ideas, but if the landowner doesn't like them, it's never gonna happen. So you need to, if you're gonna write a grant, you need to make sure you have the permissions. Right.
Do they keep like a spreadsheet and everyone said yes, or I can just say that?
For the actual application, you probably don't need to go to that detail, but that's, yeah, you'll need to, and that's what you were talking about, they're online, they have a form online. Yeah.
And what we did I did talk to our web person too, about delineating the ranches. We could send everyone to our website. You say what ranch you live on, and that becomes your ranches or your fire district's mailing, landowner approval spreadsheet. That would be for your use, because we already have it set up and it's all ready to go. But we're also trying to get landowner approval from all the 3 ranches, regardless of projects. That way, if a project comes along, we have a jump start on that. But we're just finishing up Fort Ross Road right now, which is, we're starting that project in the spring, and we still have a few people we need to get.
Just remember, if you're using total volunteer, 2 examples are here, you don't need environmental review because you're not using government funding and a government agency's not involved.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why a private landowner can do what they want to do without environmental review. But as soon as you trigger government funding or government involvement, it needs CEQA.
Yeah, you have a lot more lateral discretion if you're on a private road.
I was just gonna say that if you do get your own groups, make sure you get release forms for liability. We came up with one and passed them around and sharing it now with Sunrise and stuff, so you have that.
I have a copy of that, and we'll put that on our website under Bay Road.
And then we're accumulating the permissions too. I was just thinking, today we just did a property with, they gave us permission, but I need to go back and get it on paper so we have it, just to cross our T's and dot our I's. But, yeah. So if anybody wants to sample that form, I can send it to anybody.
Yes.
I just wanted to chime in really briefly about the CalBTP because we're getting our feet wet at the land trust working on a CalBTP for 4 of our preserves, 2 on the coast, 2 in the North County. And it's pretty comprehensive, very expensive ascent environmental program for us. We got a partial grant, thankfully, but it's still a huge investment with staff time and cost. And what we're finding is that in past funding sources like NRCS EQIP, CAL FIRE CEQA, environmental review is just built into the project. which included archaeological review. And then we've also gotten grants where we just talked about our best management practices that made us CEQA exempt, like staying out of sensitive areas and the timing of our projects, et cetera. And so we were able to obtain state funding that requires CEQA, but by being CEQA exempt, we were able to move forward. But with the Cal VTP, it's pretty comprehensive, and so we're kind of lucky that we have a lot of biological surveys, we have plant lists, wildlife lists, we have pretty extensive information for our land. But even so, like our plant lists are like from 2013, so they're outdated, so we need to go back and survey. We have sensitive species, and so that basically, like for example, on the north side of Little Black Mountain, there's a golden eagle nest. We can't even see the nest because it's not visible from where most vantage points on our property, but that kicks out work outside of nesting season. That pretty much means we can only work in the fall to the kind of maybe staying out of fire season, like November to January. So it's a very narrow window, and so we want to do our due diligence, we want to comply, and through learning from the biologists working on the bio-PSA, there are species like the ringtail that have special protections that we need to kind of be careful about. We need to kind of identify habitat trees that have like cavities and snags and unique features. We need to have our seeps and springs surveyed and mapped because you can't avoid them if you have not mapped them. And so I'm seeing that there's, it's a whole new level of doing our work that we've kind of intuitively already been kind of avoiding wildlife windows and working around, avoiding creeks, avoiding culturally sensitive areas, but now we need to do that extra surveying, and there's extra costs, there's more involved just to get, the paperwork completed to do the work. That's not even implementation. So if groups are working on roadside areas that could file a notice of exemption and just keep it straightforward, I recommend that. I think the Cal VTP is really beneficial if you're looking at large landscape level management and where there might be a CAL FIRE partnership for prescribed burning, broadcast burning. But if a group can stay nimble, stay kind of streamlined, I would look at other methods. But we'll certainly share our document once it's complete because the treatments and the information is kind of relevant because of the Creighton Ridge fire footprint and the kind of the CFIT plantings from the 80s, some of the same forest conditions apply.
Thank you.
I've listed that as a third one, easy environmental review. Good.
I just want to mention that Save Redwoods. So,
The other day I was wearing my mask and I inhaled the cotton fiber just
yeah.
talking. Everyone thought I had COVID.
Yeah. Save the Redwoods has professional grant writing staff, and we might want to take advantage of that. Maybe once we have our plan, more clearly.
Well, I think definitely should be a partner.
Yeah, and I think they'll be very happy to help because they'll be part of it. So just keep that in mind.
So I just want to mention that it's 1 o'clock, and if we can figure out what we're going to do, let's say, well, it's almost 10 after, so 1:30. What do we want to wrap up? What do we want to take away from this meeting? And then I thought we would have another meeting after the first of the year. Come back together after the CAL FIRE grant is announced, and in the meantime, we could look at the large-scale projects.
So what I was thinking I would do is I'd get some of the reference documents together to send to you. You could send it out to the group, the county CIPP, and how projects are being put in there, the CAL FIRE, fire management plan, just what's out there, the different sites to go to for the grants if you want to look at that. Maybe look at other grants that have been awarded, what they look like, so you can do the homework. And then solicit, what projects are you guys thinking about that you could get shovel ready by January? That's so we can put something to be competitive. And then what I would do is I put the map, in my kind of opinion about what is the master plan, what ridge tops are more strategic than others. You know, I think there should be shade field brick on Mohawk Ridge. But if that's not a good idea with everybody here, then my idea is not good and I'm okay with that. So just how do we, you know, I can do that part of it. I can get you guys all the reference material. But then if you guys can organically start developing grassroots projects that you can get landowner permission, that you got, you know what the treatment is, and you got people that are involved, and then we have to figure out who's gonna be the fiscal sponsor, right? Who's gonna submit the grant, administer the grant, deal with all the financial stuff of it. Who's gonna do the environmental review? We'll have to figure that out too. And then, do we need county roads here? Do we need other partners in the room?
Also, do we have access to the ranking system as a grantee, or, grantee, but we're gonna get it, but do we have access to that? How they value, like, ridge versus road versus this? Are we have access to that, or is that kind of?
So when the grant gets announced, then it's not like how much is it, 15 points available, right? It's not, it's just like, here's the categories you're gonna be evaluating. But I can tell you, it's usually fire hazard severity zone or some type of fire history, how many people, homes it's gonna save. And then you got disadvantaged communities, low income is one of the newest criteria that's being looked at. So, yeah.
And for CAL FIRE, a good document to read is the unit plan, because they talk a lot about what CAL FIRE is looking for and what they're doing. And I think you have a new one, don't you?
Yeah, you're gonna edit this, right?
Yes.
I'm not super impressed with this plan. Because it doesn't really it's all stuff we've already talked about, right? We're gonna have bad fires, bad things are gonna happen. It's not really like, where should the work exactly be done? Like, where is the science? If we wanna look at science, I think it's gonna be the county CPP. The stuff that's gonna be probably signed and agreed upon. CAL FIRE is gonna be signing part of that, if it's life, property, and environment. That's probably the most modern science is what the county's doing. So I'll send you that link. And I don't know if you guys know Esther, you know Carleone, I don't know if you guys know Mark Zuckerman from Pole Mountain Road down in Cazadero. It's science, it's GIS, it's the LiDAR data, it is science. So that is probably gonna be the best science model that can be used. We do have the PG&E tiers, we do have the CAL FIRE fire severity zones, we do have, way back when in the CAL FIRE fire plan, there was fire modeling stuff, but I think the county is gonna be where it's gonna be. So, I'll send you that link to look at that model.
Was there does the CWCP come with some sort of pre-authorization, or does it give you some leg up on any of these projects, or it doesn't really?
Well, I think what we need to do is we need to get these projects. So there's an online map. You can submit projects into the online map.
Yep.
A lot of these questions I asked you about environmental review, how shovel ready. Yep. Have you collaborated with county roads, with CAL FIRE, with your community? Do you have landowner permission? And then it'll get scored out. This county CPP ranking will score it out. Now, that is not the same criteria that may be used by CAL FIRE or Energy Settlement Funds, County of Sonoma, but it shows you at a county-wide scoring level where you would be, and it's priority 1, 2, and 3.
And they're updating the county CWPP right now, and they have the hub. I'll put those links on our website, coastridgecommunityforest.org. And I'll also put the grants that we discussed today, the other funding sources. Another sidebar is I had a meeting with Stephanie Larson last week with the UC Cooperative Extension, and they now have a new vegetation management, fire mitigation specialist. And she was making the rounds, and I met with her as well. And one of the things that came out of that meeting was they thought, hey, maybe we should do a case study, what's going on here along the coast, and looking at, are we fire resilient? If not, what are the barriers? What are the barriers keeping us from getting this work done? Is it manpower? Is it money? Is it environmental compliance? Is it, just kind of looking at it. So, these two women, Stephanie, who is the range director for Sonoma Napa, have joined our technical advisory committee, along with Fred Ufrat, who many of you know, has also agreed to kind of head a technical advisory committee for us, and we just automatically include Marshall. So there's a lot of, there is stuff going on, and people are becoming more aware of us out here and what we're doing. But still, we don't have a lot of voters. And I always say, hey, it doesn't matter whether we have 500,000 people living here or 450. If one person dies because they couldn't get out or something, what does that matter? So I think that's about all I have to say. Marshall,
I'll just close it with, I think one thing in our advantage is I think more and more money's gonna go into grants. Maybe it turns into bonds in some years, way down the road. I think more and more money's gonna go into this. And we all know that in Sonoma County, there's very little public owned land. It's a lot of private land. So by default, it's gonna involve grassroots efforts to get properties stitched together to get landscape level projects. Because we cannot submit a grant just for one property owner. It's gotta be for the benefit of the community. So more money coming in, we have our stuff well planned out, I think we'll be competitive versus trying to cram a grant together in 6 to 8 weeks and trying to get it shovel ready. So the more we can do now to build that synergy, to build that momentum, to get projects developed, I think that's what we gotta be doing. Otherwise, you know what I'm gonna do when the fire happens, I'm gonna cause a lot of destruction.
Scott? Okay.
I have just curiosity, when somebody's planning a particular project, let's say it's a shaded field right up top, original, is there some kind of a rule set that defines what you can say this does protect, how many homes this does protect?
Yep.
Is there a rule set that says you're only allowed to go, a mile and a half, or? No?
So the terminology is gonna be what's your project area, which might be thousands of acres. Your treatment area will be a subset of that. And everything in your project area, maybe it's a treatment improvement zone or influence zone, TIZ, I think was Cal Fire's calling it.
Mm-hmm.
I can help you develop that. That's how you generate those numbers.
Okay, I see. Just in thinking about this and looking at what wildfire is doing today, I see a lot of cases where we could look at something and say, gosh, if we don't do this back here, this could quite easily reach the river. And if that isn't included in our project area, then we can't include that as something that we're defending against.
Yeah.
Then we're kind of doing ourselves an injustice.
Well, yeah, so you'd say Guala River drainage, Russian River watershed, you'd include that, right? So in the North County, the big thing's Lake Sonoma, 600,000 people need water in Lake Sonoma. You look to those things, those key things, right? Tourism, wineries.
And we have,
beyond your local area.
yeah, and we have all that census data for people in the area, and I have, if you are interested in some of that in data, I have it. Roads, acreage. Scott?
I just wanted to extend an invitation before everybody leaves. The idea of having our shared fire culture brought together in a larger entity that could sustain itself, and rather than this piecemeal consolidation thing that we're wrapped up in. This is a good opportunity, I thought, for us to get together with Marshall for a few minutes after we break up, people that are interested, to just start sharing ideas and thoughts and reactions and what it could be or shouldn't be. And I extend that invitation before people leave that might want to talk about it.
Sounds good, thank you.
I think we need homework. Because we're going to meet in January, but it'd be nice to maybe have a couple of, I don't know how we're going to communicate as a group electronically, but we should think that out maybe, with some kind of conversation, as well as, there's definitely things we need to learn, to investigate, that someone, subcommittees, I don't know yet, but
I don't know, but Damien, would it be possible to set up a Sonoma Coast Collaborative page as our fire page that you've put together for this working group?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things we can do. You know, GFA and Sonoma Forest, I can't remember all the names, have a group, email groups that they utilize. The same kind of thing could apply out here. Having the website there for reference to information is good. I think that's really, you got that. But we could set up a group that allows us to communicate.
If you guys want homework, try to develop a roadside treatment project somewhere that has strategic value, and if you want to do rich stuff, shit a deal break. Or see what is acceptable in each of your communities. What do folks want? We just know each community now, you know, possibly more challenges to get something stitched together, but it's part of the master plan, the big one, big picture.
And to start working on mapping, I mean, just.
And probably more, yeah, and landowner participation. It takes a long time to get that. Start that yesterday. The rest of it can fall into place, but that seems to be the one that takes a long time. You need to do a lot of networking. Because we're going to need all of it.
It? Okay.
Lying out for a bit, for a while.
Yeah, thank you. And check our website in about a week, within the week, and we'll have this and our notes and all that on the website. And I'll talk to Damien about how we can set up a group page. Thank you.
Thank you guys.